And I think that it could warrant probably another half hour or so. But to tell you the truth, domestically, if your customer does not have a footprint in Asia, it may be moot, because there is a lot of demand of products in Asia, and without having that footprint over there, or that distributor, or the key representative in that area, it will be difficult for your customer to break in.
All right.
As I mentioned earlier. Sorry.
Please go ahead. Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, what I was mentioning is domestically you have two large players, right? Huge players, and we all know who they are. Besides Lam Research and Applied Materials, so that's that. But there are a lot of smaller semiconductor wet bench companies domestically. So those could be targets as well.
Okay, great. So there's so the lion's share of the demand is in APAC and requires a approximate presence. However, there's a meaningful presence in the U.S. of AMAT, Lam Research, and a few small players that still could be addressed profitably. Is that roughly correct?
Yes, exactly. And both Lam Research and Applied Materials are number one and number two in the world. So, if you have a footprint with them and you can ascertain some work with them, then you can transpose the demand that would be stemming from overseas customers like Tokyo Electron and Dai Nippon Screen. So I think that those two companies would be great targets, and they're both mostly, they're headquartered out of Japan.
That was Tokyo Electron, and what was there another one?
It's DNS, that's in David, Nancy, Sam,
okay.
Which stands for Dai, D-A-I, Nippon, Nippon, Screen.
Okay. And the suggestion there is if you're getting good traction with AMAT and Lam Research, then these Japanese and other overseas opportunities might start to become more realistic.
Yeah, or they can be targeted in a parallel path if you already have the intent of going into Asia. But from my perspective, you really have to have a local champion in Asia in order to be able to penetrate that industry because of their heavily guarded mentality, I would say. So I would say it's easier for them to sell into the U.S. than for us to sell into Asia.
Okay, great. So I think probably two more questions. Are there any major trends that we have not already discussed that will have major impact on supply or demand within the markets that we've been discussing?
Well, my biggest issue right now would be the consolidation of the suppliers. As you know, DuPont is no longer making PFA. So it all, as far as I know, it all comes out of the same spigot out of, Asahi Glass. And then Daikin is another one. And then you have very few other suppliers. So if one has a hiccup,
Okay, great. So I think an open-ended question here: are there any other further points that you would want to mention or highlight to help us understand the buyers, competitors, or markets that we've been discussing?
Nothing comes to mind at the time, Nicholas. I mean, I think that we went through everything that I can think of. I mean, certainly there is a lot to talk about in depth when we go into the semiconductor industry, if you choose to do that.
Yeah.
But you know, M&A is certainly going to play a role in this as people consolidate and are able to offer those numerous solutions when it comes to the processing of fluoropolymers. I think they can potentially, either buy the little guys or potentially take them out of business. So the more custom your product, the more you can offer a complete solution to your customer. The more that you understand that you're in the service, not in the manufacturing sectors when it comes to highly engineered components such as PFA, the better you will be.
Okay. So that's very helpful. And to follow up on that, for M&A candidates in this space that might be attractive because of their capabilities on the compound or manufacturing process side, or because they have a book of business that's very appealing and niche-y, are there a handful of M&A candidates in this space that you might say should be on the radar for someone that may be looking to grow via M&A?
Yeah, I mean, certainly there are. I even though I don't work at R&B, I think R&B is a good company for that. And being that they are owned by a small capital investment firm, they're always for sale. But beyond that, you have a lot of injection molding companies that are very good at what they do. I mean, I know Stabilix, they're in your neck of the woods, are highly proficient, and they can do things that not a lot of people can. There's Parkway, and then you have the people that put everything together, the engineering behind it. And so you have to look at the intellectual property and the way that they protect that as well. So whenever if I were to do any M&A, I would have to look at the engineering group and how they protect their intellectual property very closely.
To the extent that it's possible to cover it in just a minute or two, are there specific features that you would look for in the intellectual property that would make you feel good about the acquisition, or conversely, that would make you feel that there's a huge problem with the intellectual property?
Well, yeah, if you're talking about a commodity product, something that the Chinese can just reverse engineer from a geometric tolerance perspective, then that would be a huge red flag. Because if you buy a resin from Daikin, they'll help you mold it, right? So the molding of the material is not really considered intellectual property from my perspective, because even the machine manufacturer is going to tell you how to use that machine. For me, it has to do with the amount of inventiveness that their engineering group might have, and how they put those products together. Because you always have to be looking for the next thing, and I think that identifying